Once upon a time, in the early hours of December 29th, 1993, a baby named Karen Sophia Park was born. That was me. I primarily grew up in a college town called Blacksburg, Virginia, and I guess my musical story really begins with something I still find really funny today. Fart noises. When I was a baby, my mom wondered if I would have a musical ear growing up because I was very sensitive to weird sounds. Whenever somebody farted in the house, apparently I would always laugh. Of course, I don't know for sure if this really did mean anything, but regardless, I did grow up really liking music. Part of this was because there was always music playing in the house. My dad played jazz piano a lot, and my older brother, who's 7 years older than me, was eventually playing piano, trumpet, or French horn in the house for his school. Anyway, when I entered second grade, my parents thought it would be a good idea to put me in piano lessons, and they were right. Even though I only had 6 months of piano lessons, those 6 months were crucial for laying down the foundation of my musical understanding for the rest of my life. On piano, I learned to visualize scales and chords, understand harmony, and know the relationship between different notes and key signatures, etc., etc. Then came Buffalo. When our family moved to Buffalo, New York in 2005, I was 11 years old. There, I found myself in a school district that had a very strong music program, and hence, I was behind. Whereas most kids started learning a band or orchestra instrument in 4th grade, I was entering the 6th grade with only knowing how to play a little bit of piano. Luckily, we had an old wooden clarinet lying around in the house. It was actually my late grandpa's clarinet, so kind of out of convenience, I chose clarinet as my band instrument. I remember so clearly my first day of 6th grade because that was the day I played in a band for the very first time and I absolutely loved it. After school ended, I got off the school bus and ran to the driveway where my mom was waiting for me, and I was like, Mom, guess what? I played a note in band and it was so cool. There were 60 other students in the same room playing the same note as me and it was amazing. Of course, because everyone else already knew how to play clarinet, I was placed the last chair in the section, but I didn't care. I was just eager to learn how to play clarinet. I definitely became the teacher's pet in band that year. I always practiced more than what the teacher asked for. Sometimes I woke up at 6 a.m. to practice before school, and I took my in-school music lessons very seriously. Then within a matter of months, I ended up in first chair in the school band. So my band director, Mrs. Epic, eventually encouraged me to try out for auditions for the county band and orchestra. So without a lesson teacher, I did audition, but I ended up scoring a 96 out of 100 on a level 3 piece. The hardest level is level 6. While it wasn't a bad score given that I just started, I remember that my parents were very disappointed and so was I. So I just kind of cried in the backseat of the car while driving back home from the audition. I did get into the county band, but I was placed like close to last chair or something like that. So one day, my band director recommended me to get private clarinet lessons from a man named John C. Fulham. And boy did that have an impact. Mr. Fulham was a decorated Juilliard graduate and principal clarinetist of the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. He was super friendly and brilliant, but I later learned how strict and intimidating he could be. At my second clarinet lesson, after I spent a week practicing my very first assigned exercises from Mr. Fulham was very disappointed in my performance. When I played for him this one exercise, I kept playing a note wrong without realizing it. He kept yelling, "Look carefully, what are you doing wrong here?" And he wouldn't move on until I figured out what it was that I was doing wrong. After a couple of minutes of just staring at the music, I realized I completely ignored a flat sign in the music and was playing a B natural all along. My cheeks turned hot red. I was so humiliated, and I never forgot what he said that day. He said, "What's worse than not practicing at all is practicing something wrong." On the drive back home, my dad scolded me for having such a bad lesson, and I just kind of hung my head in shame. I realized at the time that I was not as detail-oriented as I thought I was. So that was the day I started practicing with a fire under my ass. On a bad day, I practiced for 1 hour, and on a good day, I practiced for 3 hours. Because I was suddenly so hyper-aware of my flaws and scared to let Mr. Fulham down, I started to get extremely nervous and anxious about my clarinet lessons every week. But all the nerves paid off. I improved dramatically. I eventually became one of the youngest members of the Greater Buffalo Youth Orchestra. And believe it or not, I started scoring 100s on level 6 pieces, landing me first chair clarinet in most county and state bands or orchestras. But most importantly, I grew more confident in myself as a musician, and Mr. Fulham taught me that I have to earn this confidence through discipline. Sadly, in 2009, after I finished 9th grade, our family had to move back to Blacksburg, Virginia. So I bid farewell to Mr. Fulham and continued to play clarinet, but in the Roanoke Youth Symphony Orchestra and without a private lesson teacher. Then came Argentina. During the summer of 2011, I won the scholarship to go to Argentina for 3 weeks as an exchange student. And there, I met a guy who would become a very close friend of mine, Maxi. And one of the first things I discovered from him was that he could play the drum set. To backtrack a little, the drum set was always an instrument I had been interested in playing ever since I discovered pop music in elementary school. My 8th grade band teacher, Mr. Schreiber, once literally laughed in my face when I told him I would like to learn the drums, because I was known as the quiet little classical clarinetist, and I certainly didn't look like someone who would want to play the drums. So when I met Maxi in Argentina, I was determined to prove him wrong. Maxi brought his drumsticks to school, and during lunch I would practice drumming on my lap or in the air. And then finally, when I visited his house, I got to play the drum set for the very first time in my life, and I absolutely fell in love. When I returned to the US after the internship, I bought an acoustic pearl drum set on Amazon for about $500, and I just kept practicing. I loved playing drums with my dad and my brother on the piano, and then later I realized, wait a minute, I can combine my drumming with music on the piano to create a song. So that moment of realization was really the birth of my song arranging hobby. Then came college. So, like any good story, this one begins with a boy that I had a really huge crush on at the time. I was pre-med in college, which means I was thinking about applying to medical school. So I joined a pre-medical volunteer group to expose myself to a clinical setting and practice interacting with patients. There, I met a guy named Corin who, honestly, I didn't think much of until I had this idea to start a volunteer band that performs music for patients at the healthcare facility. Corin was one of the first people to volunteer, and so after getting together a few singers, we started to rehearse. Now, one big characteristic about me is that when I start to like someone, I usually get sucked into whatever they're passionate about. So with Corin, it just so happened that he was a talented musician who played the guitar, ukulele, piano, and sang. So after our rehearsals, he offered to give me some quick lessons on the piano about chord progressions, and he also let me try his guitar. So that was the first time I ever played guitar. I would say that this was the day I started to better understand how songs are, quote, formalized, which will become important later on in the story. So on that day of rehearsal, Corin also kept saying that with practice I could become a singer, no matter how bad I think I am right now. Even though singing in front of someone was literally one of my worst fears, he inspired me to at least give it a shot. So literally the following day, I began to experiment and practice singing. So this here is the first video I ever filmed of me singing, and I'm here with my best friend, Autumn. I'm still really not a great singer at all, but I'm really happy that now I'm at least not afraid to carry a tune in front of an audience. Eventually, we had our concert at the healthcare facility for the patients, and it was a blast. And of course, at this point, I really liked Corin. From that day on, an arguably naive idea came to my head. Maybe, just maybe, if I pick up the guitar like Corin, he'll start to be more interested in me. And even if he's not, in the end, I'll have learned a new instrument that I can play for the patients. So I did my research online and actually decided that it would be better for me to begin with the ukulele first as my first stringed instrument. And this is because the ukulele only has 4 strings, whereas the guitar has 6, and it's much smaller and easier to play. So quite literally a month after our concert, I bought myself a ukulele and started teaching myself how to play. I didn't realize though exactly how much I would get into the ukulele. I had a lot of fun learning chords, and when I realized there was such a thing called fingerstyle on the uke, I tried that out as well. And I was like, wow, this ukulele could actually be played like a serious instrument. Actually, the beauty that I found in ukulele was its versatility. There was so much you could do on the instrument. You can strum, you can do fingerstyle, you can do percussion, and it can be played by people of almost any musical talent. So about a month after I got a ukulele, I decided I was comfortable and confident enough to try the guitar, so that's what I did. Just as I had transitioned from strumming to fingerstyle on the ukulele, I did the same thing on the guitar. So at this point, it's safe to ask, did any of my musical efforts actually make a difference between me and Corin? And the answer is both yes and no. No, we didn't end up dating or anything, but my learning the ukulele and guitar opened up more opportunities for us to hang out and play music together. So all in all, it was really great. Not to mention the sappy, cheesy, girly emotions I went through during this period, thanks to this one-sided crush, also inspired me to try songwriting with the help of some music theory that Corin had taught me on the piano previously when we were rehearsing. So I wrote a song about what it's like to like someone but not have it last forever.
Maybe it was wish, maybe it was paradise that started with a kiss.
I wrote a song about being single and wanting to share my life with someone special.
I just wanna be his sometimes. I just wanna be missed sometimes.
I wrote a song about feeling lonely and missing somebody.
Close my eyes, count 1, 2, 3. And I pretend you're standing there, but I know once I count from 1, 2, 3. Instead of you, there'll just be air.
And when I finally graduated, I wrote a song about how I don't know where I'm going in life, but I know I'll go places and I'll be fine anyway. Then from there, my musical hobby really took off. I started combining multiple instruments and video skills together to create song covers and music videos. My biggest vocational achievement was definitely winning runner-up in a national song cover contest hosted by, I think it was Lionsgate, where they challenged fans to create a song cover of City of Stars from the movie La La Land. So when I look back on my 25 years of life, there's really nothing easier for me to gush about than how I got into music and how it's influenced me as a person. Music has always been the lifelong friend that's been there for me, that's made my life easier, more joyful, and it's been a wonderful gift to share with those around me as well. Through music, I learned discipline, how to become more confident. I overcame a fear through music, and I also learned how to process my emotions, which I've learned is a very important thing to do in life. And I'm not stopping here, of course. I'm still looking to see what the next instrument I learn will be.